I'm not going to lie, I stole that from a TED Talk from Christine Earhart. Yeah, she was talking about joy too. And my dad wanted me to sing that old, I've got the joy, joy. See, I'm doing it anyway, right? I'm like, no, I think maybe I'll just come up here and I'll just start laughing. We'll see what happens. It actually reminded me of a meditation that we did once with Deborah Gray. Is anybody there for that? Raise your hands. If you weren't there for that, that is exactly what happened. Deborah sat in the chair, and we're all in these little chairs around her, and we're doing this meditation study. And she's like, okay, everybody close your eyes. And she just wailed with laughter. And we were like, kind of like you all were doing, like, what is going on? And then she just kept going and going and going, and pretty soon the whole room was crying with laughter. It was so hilariously funny. And it started out really fake. It felt very uncomfortable. It was like, I'm not really so sure about this. But as we let it happen, the laughter became really real. Like, it was really a joyful experience. It was a really joyful experience. And that's what this week is about with Advent. It's about joy. And I thought it was interesting when Bev came to me asking if I would be interested in talking today, because at the start of every year, I don't do resolutions anymore. But at the start of every year, I kind of just sit, meditate, thinking, and I just go, what's my focus this year? And this year, the first word that came to me when I did that was joy. So I thought it was really interesting that Bev asked me to talk on this today, because quite literally I've spent the better part of this year trying to figure out what joy was just for me internally, because that's how I started my year. And so, and Gonzalo can, attest to this, I've read many books. Now, I think I put away about 8 to 10 books this year on joy and happiness. I've done lots and lots and lots and lots of research on things like positive psychology and stuff out of the Mayo Clinic and things out of the Netherlands Institute of Mental Health and all of these crazy things, like trying to just get my head wrapped around what is joy and what does it mean. And I actually have so much in my head right now about it. I hope that I can make concise sense in the 15 or 20 minutes that I have to talk about it today, because it's really kind of a big thing. Melanie was talking about how, we can get joy for our environment. The pink sunrise over the pretty, wet cement, and, bubbles have a tendency to make people feel really happy for some reason, and confetti. And there's actually a lady, her name is Ingrid Vittel, and she's actually a designer, and she's done nothing but try to figure out how people can get joy out of their environment, because we're told a lot that joy is an internal thing, right? And it is, but it was interesting that you brought that up this morning in your gratitude, because there is something to be said about having an experience that brings you joy, right? And it makes you laugh, and it can be something beautiful, or it can be something profound. But it can also be a sense of accomplishment, a sense of success, a sense of feeling like you've done a good job. You've worked really hard to get something done, and you finish it, and it's what you wanted it to be, and you look at it and you go, yeah, I nailed that. It was awesome. And you feel this immense sense of joy. And I liked that because it reminds us that sometimes joy can come out of difficult things too, Has anybody had the experience of a passing or a transition or any kind of a significant loss? And when you put yourself in, can speak to this because I've had this experience myself, when you put yourself in the right place, there's a certain amount of melancholy joy for the opportunity that you had to experience something that was so amazing, you know? And it can come in lots of levels and in lots of different things. And it's tinged and maybe ringed with a little bit of pain or grief. But there's this sense of, thank you that I had this, right? And I'm grateful for that. And then there's also this really, and that leads to this really mysterious part of joy, which is also something that Melanie talked about in her gratitude today. Like, it's kind of this weird ephemeral thing. Like, what is it? You know, how do you explain it to somebody? How do you talk about, I don't know that we really have good words for it, actually. Because when you sit and think about it, you're like, I don't know, it just feels good. Like, it's just good. It's a positive feeling. You feel happy. Happy and joy sometimes get tossed together, you know, and then people want to know what the difference is. I think that's semantical. I think you can use both words in any way you decide you want to look at both words. But everybody can agree that it's good. Everybody can agree that we want more of it. You know, like the goal is to get to the end of your life and I've lived a happy, joyful life, right? We can all agree on that. But there's a lot of pieces to it. You know, there's this lighthearted joy, like the bubbles, right? Like the kind that just makes you go, oh, that's awesome. You know, and then there is that kind of like deep, sort of sad, grateful joy, like, oh, thank you for that. And then the joy that comes from an accomplishment well done, some success you've had, like, I am a rock star, yes, right? Like that joy, it's there. It's all these different little pieces and all of these different little components, and I think that it's important that we remember that it's more than just one thing, right? And then quite naturally, the next thing is, well, so how do we get more of it? How do we lead more joyful lives? And that's really what part of Advent is really about. Advent is about showing us how to do that. And Bev talked about it a little bit in our first week of Advent when she was talking about faith. And it's not just about Christmas. It's not just about leading up to the 25th. It's supposed to be a formula that we can use like hourly, daily, monthly, to remind ourselves to get in touch with these things so that we can experience more joy. And if you sat through the meditation, and if you know anything about, like, if you've done any of your own reading on happiness or joy, you know, a lot of the standard stuff is like, be grateful, show gratitude, have a gratitude practice, accept what is. Don't try to fight reality, you know? Bring it, detach. Don't need to hold on hard to an outcome so that it has to be exactly the way that it needs to be. You know, relax, 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 right? All of those techniques that people give you to experience joy actually fits into Advent, you know? Faith is the bedrock of all things, right? But you have to decide what you're going to be faithful in. The father in the New Testament who comes to Jesus and he says, I believe, help my non-belief, right? I believe, help my non-belief. As Bev said a couple of weeks ago, unlike hope, faith is, I know. Faith is, God is. That's faith. And you have to make a decision about that. Because what happens is if you don't make a decision about that, your brain and your body are actually telling yourself old stories of things that you don't want to have faith in, but you actually do have faith in. And that's that non-belief part. Those parts of yourself that are like, yeah, no, probably not going to work out. Well, you have to really ask yourself, what do you really have faith in? What is it that you really believe is truth? Right? And if you've gone through bad points in your life, it can be hard to clarify that because sometimes stuff just doesn't work out the way that you think it should, right? Life happens, right? And those are the things that push you to clarify what that faith is. I know that I've gotten to a place where my faith is very simple. My faith is, I don't know, but it will be okay. That is what I have faith in. Like, I don't know how, I don't know what, but I do know in some way it is going to be okay. And so that's what I have fallen back on in my faith, and that's what gets me through my hardest moments. And as soon as I remember that faith, I can relax, which is, of course, what peace is. Peace is just another word for relax. Just take a breath. It's okay. It's probably not that important. Just relax. It's all right. You know, you can feel your shoulders drop and stuff. When you're relaxed, you can smile. How do you express any joy when you're afraid and worried? You can't do that, right? Thich Nhat Hanh says, and I love Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh says, sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. Sometimes you just got to start laughing, even when it doesn't feel comfortable. Because eventually your body and your mind get on the track of, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I've got this. God's got this. It's going to work out. And then you can settle into that space of faith and peace, and then the real joy comes. And that's when you can look at the sunrise and see it and get joy from it, because those other two pieces are there. Because I do know people who can look at a sunrise and ruin it because they can't, it's not here. You know what I mean? Like, you know, those people are there, you know, and those are the people we need to, like, bring into that fold of love, because God bless them, they need more love, right? You have to have those two first pieces in order to put yourself in a position where the joy can come spontaneously, right? And joy isn't just always exuberant laughter. Not everybody is the same, right? Some people do not have as much energy as other people. Some people are not extroverted. Some people are introverted. Some people like quiet. Some people like noise. You can have joy. You can experience joy in all of those experiences. It doesn't have to look a particular way. But what I came to through this year, and you know, Gonzalo and I and the kids and everybody, we've had a lot of opportunity to put this into practice. What I've come to is that all of this is about a choice. All of this is about intention. Because when the rubber hits the road is when you're in a rough spot, and everything inside of you wants to blame what's happening and how this isn't fair or not my fault or something else. And you get tied up into that, and it draws you outside of yourself. And if you don't make the choice to feel joy, it's not coming. It just won't. You have to make the same choice with faith. You have to make the same choice with peace. And next week, when love comes, you have to make the same choice with love. Because remember, we're co-creating in this. This isn't just God doing for you. This isn't like a silver platter. It's not like you just sit there and like, okay, here's your joy served up. That's not how this works. You have to choose it. Has anybody ever read that book, Man's Search for Meaning? Viktor Frankl. Yeah. He's a concentration camp survivor, and he wrote about his experiences at Auschwitz. And I read that book several years ago. And while it doesn't necessarily talk about joy, it does talk about the power of the human spirit to overcome any outward circumstance. And what was interesting about his book is that as you were reading it, you realized that what the spirit needed in order to get over those circumstances was a decision. The people in those concentration camps needed to choose what this was going to mean for them and then respond from that place. And the ones who made it, held on to their hope and faith, were able to feel a little bit of peace. And then from that, even in those insanely crazy conditions, had moments of joy. And he talks about those moments of joy in Auschwitz. Right? Only because they chose it. They chose it. They chose to put their faith in something that it was going to be okay. They chose to allow that faith to give them a sense of peace so they didn't have to worry about anything anymore. And then they could choose to find just a tiny piece of happiness with where they were at. And that is what Advent is. And it's really important that we remember that we have to do that every day. This isn't just about December 25th. You know, if this was just about December 25th, the only month that's good is December. That's no good. We're not set up for that. We're supposed to have joy all the time, and we can when we choose it. And we have to remember that what puts us in a place where it makes it easier to choose is that faith and that peace. They have to be there. Whatever your faith is. The faith is really just a place that will allow you to relax. So you don't have to worry anymore. You can quiet the monkey mind. You're not trying to figure it out. Faith is what lets you be easy. It's what lets you breathe. And when you're not all up in your head making craziness, you can smile. And you can look at things and you can go, yeah, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it. It'll be all right. I know, it's a hurdle. We're in a rough patch of the mountain right now. But there's a plateau. There's a summit. I can see it. There it is. We're going. It's going to be okay. And when we can do that every day and then bring that love out of that joy, that is how we change lives. Your life and the people around you. All the time. So I hope that as you go through the week and when you see the kids do their thing, you can remember that sometimes joy has to be a choice, not just something that's given. You have to look for it, find it, polish it off, take good care of it. So, thank you.